All right, if you're looking for more adventure in your life, regardless of whether you mean adventure as in out in nature, into the wild, survival kind of adventure, or whether you simply mean to try something new or from a different angle, regardless of whether in your personal life or in your career, in your work, what better person to learn from than from the adventurer Bear Grylls? I've read the book A Survival Guide for Life by Bear Grylls. It's subtitled How to Achieve Your Goals, Thrive in Adversity, and Grow in Character. Okay, the subtitle sort of points it towards showing that it's actually about a lot of subjects. And honestly, this book is fantastic. If you don't know about Bear Grylls, let me just give you a quick rundown. So this guy has climbed Mount Everest. This guy has flown a paramotor around the Himalayas. Perhaps you may know him. He's probably mostly famous in media for his for being the host of the show Man vs. Wild, where essentially the plot is that the crew finds some remote location, preferably non-urban, sometimes urban, but mostly non-urban, such as a jungle or a forest. And then Bear is dropped into this location, obviously with his camera crew, but he's dropped into this location with nothing but, say, for example, a knife, right? And then his goal is to find his way out of this remote location and back into civilization. Okay? Madness, obviously. Okay, but this sort of just goes to show what kind of character we're dealing with here. So to the book, A Survival Guide for Life. This book is not just a book about how to be adventurous in the concrete sort of nature sense, but it's a lot more. So Bear talks a lot about mountains. And being the adventurer he is, obviously he refers to, literally, concretely, he refers to mountains. Like sometimes he actually talks about mountains, okay? But obviously he's also referring, as far as I understand, he's also referring to the mountains within, like the mountains of our minds. Okay, I think he means this from two aspects. So on one side, it's about how we envision something that we want to do, right? Like how we have great goals that can be seen as mountains that we want to scale, that we want to climb and achieve. Okay, that's one end. But then also, on the other end, mountains as in the sort of the things that we have to overcome in life. Like, obviously life is not fair. Like it's not true that everybody's born with equal chances. Like there's inequality in life, and like we have different levels of obstacles that we have to overcome in order to reach the goals that we want to reach. And as far as I understand, it seems like he's talking about mountains in this sense, like the mountains of obstacles that we have to overcome in order to reach the points that we want to reach, right? Like the unfairness, we're born into a situation and we have to scale whatever mountains that sort of was thrown in front of us, okay? Beautiful metaphor. I think this holds through the book. So if you're looking for a book about sort of, for sure, how to be adventurous, but also about how to live your life. From reading this book, I learned that Bear seems to be a religious man, and I don't really want to get into the whole discussion of religion, and obviously I'm not religious myself, so it's kind of unfortunate that that part sort of is in the book, but either way, it sort of goes to show that his character. Like, it's obvious that he's interested in identifying guiding principles of how to live the good life. Okay, the good as in good externally towards others, and good internally as in what do I want for myself. Like that sort of balance. He's obviously a very compassionate person. All right, but let's get more concretely to the book. So if you're looking for a bunch of fantastic one-liners, this is the book. Let me just quickly give you some of the few one-liners. One of them is that he says, warm and dry doesn't necessarily mean fulfilled and happy. Warm and dry doesn't necessarily mean fulfilled and happy. Okay, so it's like a theme throughout this book that he tells things through stories that has sort of occurred in his life and adventures that he's been through. And this particular quote is from I think from some kind of military practice where he I don't know, was struggling with some task, and he was out in the woods and all dirty and muddy and it's rainy and he's wet and all of this, and he can't think of anything else but sort of just reaching the goal and getting into the warmth and becoming dry. But then when he actually reaches the goal, it turns out that he didn't finish in time, right? And at that point, he sort of feels like he's wishing he could be out there again to do better, right? To be wet and not dry, wet, like cold and wet instead of warm and dry, right? Just because you're warm and dry doesn't necessarily mean that you're fulfilled, okay? And a lot of the things he's saying in this book isn't necessarily controversial. It's just that he weaves them in a very nice way, with very nice words, and puts them into beautiful stories, or interesting and engaging stories of his life. So I mean, this sort of points to how whenever we're in one situation, oftentimes long for another situation, how we're always in this sort of idle waiting stage for the next thing that's supposed to happen to us, or the next goal that we want to achieve. So another one of these one-liners is that he's saying, stop trying, endeavor. Okay, he's trying to tell us to stop engage in activities thinking that we're going to just try it. Okay, instead he's saying engage in them as an endeavor. Okay, when I first heard try, I thought he was going to say stop trying, just do. Okay, but it's actually more than that. He's saying endeavor, and it's funny how he chooses this word, because he points towards that it sounds like it's when you endeavor things, it's like you engage in like an epic journey, right? Like you endeavor into it, right? I mean, who wouldn't want more sort of epic journeys in their lives? That's fantastic, right? So we should stop trying, because when we say that we are engaging in something and we say that, oh, I'll just try it, right? We're setting up ourselves for failure. We're sort of pre-handed giving ourselves the excuse to fail because we just tried, right? But instead we endeavor, okay? Another one of these liners is, no one cares how much you know before they know how much you care, okay? It's simple. It's probably been said before, right? Most of these things has probably been said before, and I'm not entirely sure all of these are by Bear Grylls. Some of them are actually by people around him, so he's sort of reciting things that he's been told. But no one cares how much you know before they know how much you care. So think about it. I mean, if you're in a lecture, you listen to a presentation, you're at a conference, right? There's a public speaker and you're listening to the public speaker. It doesn't matter if he or she is an absolute expert. If the information that person is conveying isn't weaved at least a little bit interestingly. Like, if it's so boring that you're struggling to stay awake, it doesn't matter if the person is an expert. If the person isn't excited about the information, it's hard to see how you could or should be excited about the information, right? No one cares how much you know before they know how much you care. Fantastic. So again, another thing that goes to show how much he's interested in finding guiding principles in life. He cites like the 5 guiding F's that he uses in his life. The 5 F's are family, friends, faith, fun, and follow your dreams. Notice how none of these F's are directly about work. Obviously, he's a very passionate and engaged and hardworking person. But as far as I understand, it feels like these F's are used in a way that work comes through these F's, right? Survival comes through these F's, right? So by following your dreams, you will find a way to make ends meet, right? Making ends meet is not an end in itself, right? Instead, we should follow our dreams. We should spend time with our family, spend time with our friends. This is nothing controversial. I know. But it sort of makes sense. It's interesting to hear that a character such as Bear Grylls, when he's trying to boil down principles, he's choosing these words. Another one, again, nothing new under the sun, but the way he puts it, it's about failure. The way he puts it is fail more than anyone you know. Right? How failure propels us forward, how failure makes us better. So it's almost like it's measurable, right? Like at the end of a week, we could sort of look back on the week, reflect, and say, okay, how much did I fail this week? You look at your colleagues and your friends and you think, okay, how much did they fail? Did anybody fail more than me? Did anybody engage in some sort of adventurous activity, threw themselves out there on the line and tried something new and then failed massively? Because if they did, perhaps we should throw ourselves more massively out there, right? To dare to try something different, right? So fail more than anyone you know. And then one final one-liner from this book. I think this is from something that his father told him when he was young and he was riding a horse and he fell off the horse and his father started to applaud him. And he was wondering, why does my father applaud me? I just fell off a horse. But then his father said that you can't become a horseman until you've fallen off a horse. Of course, right? You have to fail first. You have to feel the pain of failure before you can actually succeed. And I think this resonates very deeply with me because I remember how my mother early on used to say that just get back up on the horse as quickly as possible. Right? Whenever I failed at something, she used to joke about that as if it was some kind of universal saying that it's very important to get back up on the horse as soon as possible. Right? Instead of building up that fear, right? Connecting fear to the event and the circumstances that made you fall. Instead, as quickly as possible, we get back up and we try again. And we don't let fear control that situation, right? We just try again until we succeed. So you can't become a horseman until you've fallen off a horse. Splendid. So let me say one more time, this book is absolutely splendid and very, very exciting. I mean, there's a lot of sort of, you get nervous with these adventures where you're like, oh my God, how is this going to end? So let me just give you one example where a story of how he and a couple of colleagues are crossing the North Atlantic in a rib boat. So a rib boat is like an inflatable boat, so it's filled with air. So obviously it's not a sturdy boat. And it's super cold and it's in the night and they're hit by a massive storm and they sort of go down and up and down and up the massive waves, right? In this tiny little boat. And it's freezing water. And they have to shift, they have to take turns, right? They have to shift drivers, because the drivers of the boat, I'm steering man or whatever it's called. Like they take turns on driving because they have to drive through the whole night in order to sort of just let the storm pass, okay? And in this particular story, it's about how Bear decides that he needs to break the rule of shifting driver and just keep driving because they were too close at failing, because they were too close at accidents when they were switching drivers, okay? Like it makes your heart pump. Super scary. So check this book out if you're interested in adventures, guiding principles in life, or just want a bunch of one-liners, right? So the book is called A Survival Guide for Life. It's written by Bear Grylls. So I highly encourage you to go check this book out and let him tell you about how life is an adventure.